Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. Speaker, author, executive coach, and Olympic medalist, Paul Kingsman is a sought after expert on how to be distraction proof. He teaches financial services professionals the repeatable systems, processes, and verbiage required to successfully grow their businesses and achieve outstanding long term results. Paul knows the importance of keeping focused in life's split seconds firsthand. He trained for 13 years to swim a 2-minute backstroke race at the Olympics and won a medal by only 4/100ths of a second. As an Olympic medalist, Paul knows the principles and mindset needed to succeed in a highly competitive environment. His experience enables him to equip people with practical solutions to overcome distractions and pursue their priorities. After completing his studies at UC Berkeley and retiring from competitive swimming, Paul applied the same success habits he had developed in the sport to business, going on to achieve big results with companies such as Speedo and Morgan Stanley, both in his native country of New Zealand and in the US. His book, The Distraction Proof Advisor: Gain Control, Work Smarter, Succeed Sooner, is available from Amazon.com. Paul has a master's of theological studies and was a jail chaplain in California for 16 years before he and his wife made a 2018 cross-country move to the upstate of South Carolina. So, welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Russell. It's a pleasure being here and spending time with you.
Yeah. So this is going to be good. I'm going to probably pick up on your accent a little bit. I don't know
That's
why.
okay.
I kind of have a chameleon type thing if I'm talking to people from different parts of the country.
Right.
It's which is a blessing, because if I kept my original Secaucus, New Jersey accent, people would be a little disturbed.
No
So
problem. As
I'm
long as
just
you don't, as long as you don't mix it up with an Australian accent, we're all good.
oh yeah, forget it. So anyway, so yeah, let's start at the beginning. For me, okay, New Zealand. I mean, other than Lord of the Rings and Kiwis, I don't know too much. And Kiwis are referred to the people. I got to be honest with you, Paul. I always thought it was a fruit.
Mm.
So maybe you can clarify just briefly.
Yeah, so the kiwi is the bird. It's our national bird, only found in New Zealand. It's a nocturnal animal, and it's a fat, flightless bird. Super cute. But as my college roommates used to tease me, like, why would you want to be named after like a fat, flightless bird? Kind of several things not going right with that. So, but it's
Right.
after the animal and not the fruit.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right. So, but then folks from New Zealand, they're referred to as Kiwis as well, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. Yep, we're
yeah.
all Kiwis. Proud to be labelled that.
Okay. And okay. So, growing up in New Zealand, no, you have siblings?
I do. I have a sister who is 2 years younger than me, and she's married with two young boys.
Okay. And you have a son as well, right?
We have a 29-year-old son, yeah, who just moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to Seattle, Washington.
All right. Well, we'll pray for him. Uh, no, I'm just
We do.
saying the stuff you hear out of. I mean, you can't trust the news, but you hear just wonky stuff coming out of the Great Northwest. But
Yeah.
so let me ask you this, because I had this vision the other day, anticipating our conversation.
Mm,
So in my mind, every child should learn to swim. So
mm.
I was fortunate in that sense. I mean, from kiddie pools and everything else like that. But did life start out like swimming for you, or was it just kind of an activity that you participated in?
Say the water always was something I was drawn to when I was super young. So whenever we went to the beach, we always went. So remembering seasons are reversed here. So our Christmas vacation time was over summer.
Uh,
And so basically, New Zealand shuts down for the end part of December and most of January. And so my parents would always go to the beach with other family relatives. And even when I was 4 or 5, as soon as I saw the water, I had to be in it. I would float. I'd run into it. This is what my parents had told me. I would run into it and I would just float on my back. And once there, this is like heaven on earth for me. This is peaceful. And so very quickly, my parents realized we're going to teach this kid how to swim.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, so when I was about 8 years old, I went along. They took me along to the local swimming coach and local swimming pool. And he said if you can, if you can get in and swim a lap, which at that stage it was 25 meters. He said if you can get in and swim a lap, I'll take you. He said I'm full up. So you got to be able to swim a lap. Well, I got in, and of course, to me, and we may touch on this a little later. I have pictures in my mind as far as I'm concerned. That's the mountain we're gonna take. And so I said, of course, I can swim a lap. Got to halfway, stood up, and he took me. He always says that it was out of the goodness of his heart, and I always say that he needed the money. Uh, we'll still go back and forth on that one,
Youth
but we can
sports.
see God's plan in the whole thing. And but yeah, I've just always loved being in the water.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, love being in the water, but it seems like over the years I've run into so many kids and young people, even, and young adults who are afraid of the water, never
Yeah,
learned how to swim. And, I mean, I was no, Olympic. I wasn't any Olympic. Although I do have to note that well, it was 60 years ago. I want to say like 1966 at Camp Tawadena in New Jersey, Boy Scout camp. I did win the backstroke. It was actually the backstroke title for that year.
right.
So I am speaking from some experience when I'm
Sure,
talking to you, but
sure.
I think it's kind of disheartening. It should be like on the list of like, okay, even if your kid's not going to be a competitive swimmer, I think they should learn to swim. I mean, it's just such a you never know what kind of situations are going to come up, and like you said, it's such a pleasurable experience once you start doing it.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that, Russell. I totally agree with you. We used to own a swim school in New Zealand, and I agree with you for a number of reasons. And well done on your backstroke. I mean, that's the only stroke that really counts as far as I'm concerned. Having won my medal in that, but one of the things that we used to own a swim school, and one of the things that we saw when children started getting a handle on swimming was an incredible confidence. And it teaches you, mechanics. It teaches you rhythm, and it's the only sport where you simply can't breathe when you want to. So it teaches your body and your mind all about self control, all about taking a breath and not so much holding it, but relaxing as you breathe out under the water to keep in that rhythm. And so, definitely agree with you regarding learning to swim from a safety angle. Yes. Um, it blew me away when we had our swim school. How many parents would bring their children in and say, "Yeah, we want them to learn how to swim. We own a boat, and so they obviously need to know how to swim." It never occurred to me until a couple of months later to ask the parents, "Do you know how to swim?" And they would say, "Well, no, but we got to, we know how to get to the side of the boat." And it amazed me how people's perceptions of the water and how quickly you can get into strife,
Yeah,
just how misled they were. But
yeah.
yes, I'm a huge fan for learning how to swim, and the rhythm that it teaches you would then move over to other sports that we would see these children get involved in. And so we're
Speaking of
big
which, did you
advocates
play
of that.
any other sports or no?
Not once I got to a certain level of swimming. I used to play rugby. Every kid in New Zealand plays rugby, and if you don't, they used to move you out of the country, just about. Um, but every kid learned how to play rugby. It's a very physical game, and once I was getting to a certain level in swimming, I couldn't afford the risk of being injured, of getting hurt, and so that I wound that down to focus just on swimming.
On swimming? Yeah. That's good. Now, your folks, what were they athletes? Like, give me a little bio on your folks.
Yeah, so they're competitive in their own ways. Dad used to play. He's just about 92, and he was still playing table tennis 4 days a week up until several months back. He used to play competitive tennis. My mum used to run track, so they were very confident. I'd say very comfortable around sports. No swimming in the family at all, but they were incredibly supportive, and so was my sister of everything that I was doing.
Mhm.
I was hugely blessed to have an entire team around me relative to parents, my sister, my coach, and what have you, who were very supportive of me. But from, you know, inheriting anything, nothing relative to swimming.
No, like 5, 6 toes with webs or anything like that.
No,
No.
no. Our son is 6'5". He's got size 15 feet, and I would have given anything for that when I was swimming. But and where he got them from, we don't know. But he's got both of our height, and but no, it's
Imported. That's
yeah.
good. So okay, so yeah, youth sports um can be really good, really
Mm,
bad. I can just one experience I wanted to ask you about your coaches. One I remember my oldest daughter, she started playing basketball in 5th grade and went all through college playing ball, but there was like 3 seasons every year. So there was different coaches. There was a school season, and there was the different seasons of playing, and there was leagues and whatever. So she had a lot of coaches over the years. And I remember after she graduated, whatever, one of those look back moments, and just saying, "Hey, how many coaches would you ever want to go back and play for?" And I was really shocked. She said one,
ha,
and I asked why and whatever, but I was
mm.
just curious. I'm sure you've had a lot of coaches, or maybe not. Did you have a lot of coaches, or did somebody stay with you?
No, no, I was on the other end of that spectrum, and it's interesting that you just chose one from that because if these people they can have a dramatic impact, either way, positively or negatively. I was blessed to the coach who I started with, Hilton Brown, when I was 8. We stayed together my entire career. The only time that changed was when I was swimming at UC Berkeley when I started my swimming scholarship in 1986. And even then we kept connected. Now he was it was two very different coaching styles. When I came across to the US, I had to get used to Nort Thornton's style of coaching, coming from Hilton, who was a little more demonstrative, a little more vocal, and I enjoyed that. Whereas Nort was very laid back. Once he saw you wanted to learn, he was open to answering anything and giving you feedback. But I was blessed to have two coaches who totally got me. Um, and a great coach has to understand how you tick, how you work. Um, my coach back in New Zealand, he knew how to motivate me. When I was younger and we were training in a squad together with maybe 20 kids in the same program, he could say to 19 of those 20 kids, get your head down, get your feet up, and get moving on the top, going on the 60. To me, he'd come along and say, this is going to push you. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through this set because it's going to really. And to me, that was just like, let's go. And so he knew how to motivate. He was there the night I won my Olympic medal in Seoul, and yeah, just one of those moments where you knew, hey, 13 years, it's
So,
come true.
were there different places that you got inspired? I mean, obviously, whoever there was great swimmers, but just in terms of like keeping that daily grind, even as a kid growing up, like what fed that? Was it just from the coach? Was it from your folks? Was it from a teacher? Where was your motivation coming from at the time?
So all of the above, my coach, my parents, but when I was young. I used to get, we subscribed to US Swimming Magazine. It was called Swimming World, and it's still around today, obviously online now. And every month or two, and because being down in New Zealand, the thing came like 6 weeks later. So,
Three
but
world
the,
records ago.
exactly, yeah, world record could have gone three times by that stage. But I, when I was 10, 11, 12, I wasn't so much interested in the articles. I'd flip to the back where it always had the meets, the international swimming meets, and age group results. And I'd start tracking what the 12-year-old Russians were doing, what the 12-year-old Germans were doing, what the 12-year-old Americans were doing. And when I was 11, and so I'd be looking at these kids' times thinking, that kid's 12, I've still got a year to go to get that time. And so that never daunted me. In fact, it inspired me, it enthused me. In New Zealand, because we were so remote, to do something, on an Olympic scale, you've got to be thinking globally. And so from very young, I used to enjoy tracking these swimmers. And then when I went to Australia as an age group swimmer, that was my first big meet outside New Zealand, outside the New Zealand age groups. I won an age group title there, and then won the open men's title when I was 14. And that for me was, hey, now we're talking international, although it's only 2 hours, 3 hours away. Um, where do we go next? And that's how that whole
Nice.
process
And
started.
Australia's always had they're always well represented, right? In
Huge,
international
huge,
swimming.
yeah,
Yeah.
huge aquatic program. Looking at their Olympic qualifying times coming into the Paris Olympics this year, they're going to have a super strong team. They went through a problem 2 Olympics ago, and they bit the bullet and ironed the issues out with the coaching staff and got rid of several who needed to go. And the team since then, the last Olympics and this one, they're going to be super fun to watch, as is the US team for sure.
Hold off on the previews. We want to get through.
Yes,
I have in my mind. Okay, we're going to hold off on that because I want to definitely dig into that. But
sure.
all right, so I I looked at okay, so you win um, the first medal to that anybody any man or woman, I think, any first swimming medal for your country in history, right?
For men, yes, yeah. There'd been a lady won one back in 64,
Okay,
66. So yeah.
and then I watched a video
Mm.
of okay, so you've come this whole route: support team, sister, mom, dad, coaches, teachers, from teammates, your country, everybody that went into this whole thing. And
Mm.
now it's that moment that, we all love to watch, the podium moment, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And the introduction comes for the bronze medalist. Tell us that story real quick, because I was like, oh my goodness,
Right.
what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was funny. So we knew the announcer. I mean, I didn't know him personally, but he did a lot of the announcing for NZ2A swimming, for US swimming. Wonderful guy. And the guy who came fourth to me in the race was only 4/100ths of a second behind. And so whether it was just not noticing, or what the story was, yes, when he announced my name, or he didn't announce my name, when he announced third place, he announced another swimmer instead, and who was the fourth place getter. And the crowd knew, and started not booing but whistling and hissing a little bit, and I didn't want to get up on the podium. The Korean lady who was ushering us up, she didn't quite understand what was going on. um, One of the ironic things about that medal presentation, Russell, there was a New Zealand, Artie Shaw, who presented the medals, was one of the two people presenting the medals. He was a New Zealander, he was a Kiwi. and he was the vice president of FINA, and so he was asked before the swimming started, you can present medals to any event, one event that you want. And so he said, I want the men's 200 meters backstroke. He was actually a representative from my home club in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And right before I went onto the pool deck to race, um, Artie came up to me and he said, I just wanted to tell you, I've requested to present the medals to your event. And then he started walking off, and then he turned back and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, I'll see you in 5 minutes. And it was one of those
Wow.
things that, yeah, it was just an amazing moment. But then when they messed up on the medal presentation, he was waiting as well. And yeah, when he presented me with the gift there, he's like, yeah, we knew they'd get it right eventually.
Oh my goodness. All
So
right.
yeah.
Yes, that was anybody, yeah, that wants to hear that, see that unfold, you can go to paulkingsman.com and dig around and you'll find that clip.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
yeah,
Um and then all right, so okay, you've talked about uh you win the gold. I mean, sorry, the bronze.
bronze. Yeah,
You're now you have to carve out a career. And
yeah,
how did that transition? Like, how did that come about? I mean, you know, from swimming to a career in a real niche area. I mean, of
yeah.
like super intense movers and shakers in the world of business.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. And that also to explain that more fully, I've got to come back to my parents. Mum and dad had always impressed upon me just through the way they lived and their character, the issue around humility and the understanding that okay, I mean they were excited for me. We were all excited, but an understanding that hey, this is a God-given talent, God-given ability. um, Life, life moves on. You're still two arms, two legs. You breathe just like everyone else, and the next day you move forward. And whether there was a total failure, not and when I say failure, whether there was a total missing the goal, or whether you were top in the world, you don't change as a person. And my dad was very, very big on that. And so um, I always remember actually after that night, after the swim in the Olympics, you do wake up the next morning thinking, I feel the same. Yes, I got to eat. I'm a little hungry. I'm really sore. But then you realize, okay, on that particular day, I was third in the world. We could race that again today. I might come seventh. We could race that again today. I might win. Who cares? It's a moot point. It's like that was September the 22nd,
Mhm.
1988. To your point, life moves on. And so, definitely using that experience and I was again blessed with the people I'd trained with, my coaches, for instance, my college coach. When we would have recruits come in and visit our team program, they might have been the best swimmers on paper in the US then and there, because we attracted a lot of top swimmers. As a team captain, our coach, after we had met with the swimmer for 2 days, they'd visited Cal, they'd looked around Berkeley, and if they weren't frightened off by what they saw around Berkeley, he would sit down with us and he'd say, "So, what do you think?" And he would tell us, I don't want rankings to factor into this. Would they work in the team? Would they fit? And there were a couple of people, Russell, who anyone would have given their right arm to have. And we said, they're just not going to gel. The ego's there too much. They're not going to fit into what we need them to do. And so moving forward in life, understanding that, again, you treat people all the same. And so moving into another career, leaving New Zealand to come back and live here. A lot of people in New Zealand, when they found out we were leaving New Zealand to come back to the US, they would say, well, no one knows you over there. I mean, you're a well known here in New Zealand because it's a small country. Um, and that daunt me at all because of my faith, firstly. But because to me that was just like another challenge. Just like, okay, we'll go out and we'll carve our way again, and in the US, because a lot of people knowing me really never meant much from an ego perspective, anyway. Um, so you do pick up a lot of obviously confidence with going out there to swim against the best in the world. You realize also that you have bad days. Everyone does, and you come back to especially scripture where it's just like, hey, let's just let today take care of itself and do the best we can. And that's where I've always come from. My father was the same. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. um,
So, okay, so all right, so let's touch on that. The
mm,
faith walk, was that
yeah.
from as a child? Did that when how did that develop in your life?
So I'd been raised in a Christian home. My mum was pregnant with me and she had been a believer for a long time. My father wasn't, and came to the Lord about 3 or 4 months before I was born. That's how I got the name Paul. And he was reading through. He just consumed Scripture after that, and so he was reading through the New Testament. My middle name is James. As I tell people, I'm very glad he wasn't reading through the Old Testament at that stage, because
Right, right.
who knows what I would have been called.
Ezekiel.
Um,
Yeah.
but I always knew. So I'd always been raised in a Christian home. I always knew I still had to make a decision myself and for myself. And I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I also knew I had to make it public. A public decision when I did that. That's not for everyone. That's definitely not necessarily how it works for a lot of people. But I knew when I was 11 years old, um, surrounded by a great group of Christian friends. We'd grown up in the same youth group together from when we were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. When I was 11, at a Christian youth camp, accepted Christ, and knew that this is finally who I am, as far as just a full, complete. And so my faith at that point, again, my swimming became very clear, even clearer. And I had taken that scripture in Ecclesiastes very literally: whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your heart. And so that to me was, there's a job to do. I need to do it diligently, because first and foremost, I'm doing it for the Lord. It needs to be done to the best of my ability. And from that, earning the right to expect success, earning the right to be able to go to God praying for success. Nevertheless, His will be done.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
That means I can train for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, solid days, full on days, do everything I can do, and then leave it in His hands. Um, it also means if you're going to compete against me, I'm gonna be competing hard. I have no desire to beat anyone. I've never wanted to beat anyone. I've never gone into a race wanting anything less than to win. They're two separate things.
Swim in your race.
Just swim your race. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to get criticized for this by some people in New Zealand, where obviously in age group swimming, I was leading the way, leading the pack, and I would be way ahead by halfway during a race. But by the halfway point in a race, I'd be body lengths out in front. But I wasn't going to slow down, because I wasn't swimming to beat them. I was swimming to swim as fast as I could, because that's what God had gifted me to do. That was the job. And so I would sometimes have parents say to mum and dad, he knew he'd won the race. He just kept swimming fast to make these other kids look stupid. Had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Uh,
That's
it
good.
was it was
People will
my
always
job to do
talk.
the best I could.
Right. People always talk,
Yeah,
especially
they do. They
especially
do.
parents at youth events. Oh boy, do they
Yeah,
talk.
yeah,
But
they do. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, just that story too, about priorities.
Mm,
Okay, so the discipline that uh, goes with it. Okay, so you have peace knowing that
Mm,
You know, you're running your race, you're doing that part of your life, you're doing what you needed to do, you're doing it to the best of
mm.
your ability, right? But there's a discipline that has to go with that, right? To go to high levels. And so in your video priorities, just tell that story about with your mom answering the phone uh, at 8:35
Oh,
p.m.
oh, yes, yeah, 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 yeah. So New Zealand is a tiny country, and back then we were the only Kingsman in New Zealand, and so you could find us very easily in the phone book. Remember, no cell phones back then in the '80s, and it was phone book and rotary phones, and so I was, during my build up for 1988, I was always in bed by 8:30. That was for me. That was my limit, and so I would often get calls, but after 8 o'clock, but before 8:30, and then from reporters, and I would share with them. I'd answer questions, but only to a point. But yeah, if anybody called after 8:30, they would always get my mum, and she was so polite and so sweet, but you just weren't getting past her. Like, she was resolute and like you had to give all these reasons. The world record just went. We heard these times have just come in from the Europeans. The Americans have just swum this fastest time. We just need a comment for tomorrow morning's news. And Mum was just like, no, give them a call tomorrow.
Yeah,
and sure enough, they did.
yeah.
But what was interesting, Russell, is well, I'd call them back the next day, and it was amazing how everybody's urgent issue, they'd want it to become your issue as well. And we just couldn't permit that. We just couldn't permit that. And so we had what we needed to do. I had what I needed to do, and nothing and no one was getting around that. It just
But
that
I
was how
think,
it had to be.
and that's what, and I know you teach that,
Yep.
in your business and all, and I was applying that to parenting because
Mm,
um, it's complicated, life's complicated, it's busy, but there are so many distractions that
mm.
can creep in, and not that you have to be, you have to have your mom there all the time to take calls, but you know, I think there's a way, or at least an awareness we have to really protect the time that we have as a parent, right? Not only in our, taking care of our own stuff, but the time with our children and everything else like
Mm.
that. Because sometimes we, say, "Gee, there's no time to do this. There's no time." But when we look back to the time that we waste, and especially in this world, I mean, everybody's walking around like this all the time, and
That's right.
oh,
That's right.
I missed a message.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, yeah, I called the next morning. Well, it wasn't that important, and
Yeah.
whatever. And you could have been in bed 2 hours before, as a
Yeah.
parent, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that message is, resonates. I think across the board, about
Mm,
priorities.
mm.
Um, and then, yeah, the other thing too is, and maybe just tell the little exposed story.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
hysterical.
Um, just on that point though, with regarding the parents and
Sure.
influencing their children, someone's going to. There's no. I mean, to your point, everyone's got one of these things now. At an alarming age, we're seeing the reports coming through now, the consequences and the cost. Just listen to two fascinating podcasts about the health impacts on children with these smartphones. And so when parents, and I get it, it's fatiguing being a parent. You go into Borders, and you see online all these books kind of having you thinking like this is a dream, this is a cakewalk, and it's just like but the bottom line today that we've got to understand is someone is going to influence them one way or the other. There's no void in this.
No,
So we have a choice at that point, and it's not easy.
no,
Especially, it's just not easy to do. Um,
the pressure to do what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is looking at
yeah, yeah, that's
is,
exactly right. And so, I'm glad our son, like I mentioned, he's 29 years old. It would be a lot more challenging these days. Even back then, it was challenging,
Yeah.
challenging enough. But yeah, being the little exposed, you literally everybody sees the medal, and and everybody, it's always, I joke about it when I'm speaking, because I pull out the medal to start with as I've built up to this point in my talk and my presentation, first couple of minutes. And everybody understands the desire for a medal if you're, obviously pursuing Olympics, but even then people have a lot of respect for it. But then when I pull out the swimsuit, as far as being exposed, that's the majority of it. The majority of what we do, especially as competitive swimmers, um, it's spent training. It's spent, again, 13 years of work. That event took me 2 minutes to swim. It's spent in an incredible, much of it, discomfort, and you get used to that. You train your body, you train your mind to tolerate that. And so, back then, an antiquated pool systems, and antiquated, when I say antiquated, it's 40 years ago, um, but an antiquated, or 30 years ago, in filtration systems, you could never get the chlorine off your system, out of your skin, because you're in the water so much.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember nights where you're aching so much, you're just so fatigued, you can't sleep, and during summer you'd start to sweat a little bit, and it would bring the chlorine up into your skin, and it would just stink. It's a chemical,
Yeah.
and you get used to that. Now, the downside of that, as now I'm in my mid 50s, is when I've got a nagging, shoulder through lifting weights or something, I'll just put up with it. And my wife will keep telling me, "We got to get that sorted out." It's
Yeah.
okay.
Mere
But
flesh wound.
now, yeah, now I'm learning, though, obviously too, in mid 50s, things don't go away as quick as what they used to.
Yeah. Well, if you make it as far as me, yeah, it's even another level once you hit 70. So
Right, right. But yeah, you're still lifting, like you're still working out, which
I'm
is
pretty much
impressive.
I'm lifting myself out of the chair half the time. But
Right.
yeah, but no, it's and everything, it changes. I mean, the physical
Yeah.
part of the world, your physical world changes and stuff and all,
Yeah.
but it's fine. I'm happy to be here. I've had a
Yeah.
lot of people from my graduating class that are no longer here, and
Right.
although I am looking forward to the next level, I'm looking for.
Mm.
But all right, so let's go to Olympic preview 2024 with Paul Kingsman, and I want these are some things. Okay, and as a kid growing up, it was ABC, Wide World of Sports. You'd sit at night from 8 to 11 p.m. and they had the highlight clips, what they wanted to show you. So you didn't see everything. And I guess they had it on Saturdays and Sunday afternoon, Saturdays, and they had an extended coverage, right? And everybody, I was always excited to see, whatever sport it was. It didn't matter.
Right.
Like, people are going for their personal best. That's just,
Mm.
it's great. Um, Over the years, though, now you can pick what sport you want to see and what you want to view, and now there's, I don't know if it's money, sponsorships. I don't know. The Olympics got more complicated to me. The times when you can see it and not see it. Then if you click one place, you've found out that so-and-so won. And even though you haven't seen it yet because you're seeing it on delay, you never had
Right.
that complication.
Right.
But but I always wondered, like, okay, you hear stories about the Olympic Village. You know what? And I'm sure it's changed, but it hasn't changed probably. So give us like a walkthrough. Like, first of all, how many days are you there before you start swimming? Like, when do you arrive?
I can give you two contrasting examples. One of what I did when I was a 17-year-old kid in 1984 Olympics to what I did in 1988. Typically, the swimming is on from a calendar perspective of events. Typically, the swimming is on pretty early, and it's completed reasonably early. Oftentimes, the track and field doesn't get going until 5 or 6 days into
Right.
the Olympics, and so you usually arrive at the village anywhere up to 8 to 16 days prior, and so that gives you a chance to start getting used to the pool. It gives you an opportunity to start getting used to just the village vibe and the village. So let's say you get in there 12 days out before the Olympics actually start. You're not really thinking about the openings, the Olympics starting on X date. You're thinking about where am I? And so in the Seoul Olympics, for instance, I was on the fifth day. So at that point, as you get into the village might be a little empty, but you're seeing it fill up every day. More and more people. Lines are getting longer where you're eating. Food is 24/7. It's open all the time. In 1984, young dumb teenager, 8 and 8 and 8, over 8. When you're tapering as an athlete, you're coming off 6 hours a day training, touching the water for maybe 45 minutes a day, if that. So you can
Okay.
imagine a combination of things, and this is where discipline comes in.
So you
A
had the
combination,
appetite of working
exactly,
so many hours, and yet you weren't working.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Not only the appetite, all of this energy. You're lying on your bed trying to stay off your feet, off your legs. You're getting bored out of your brain. I'm just going to walk and go and get something to eat. And before you know it, you pack on 6 or 7 pounds,
Oh,
84, 88, not a hint of that. So you're staying disciplined. More people in your home country are arriving into your area of the village. Um, Swimmers will start yapping. They'll start talking about other swimmers they've seen. They'll start talking about other times they watch swimmers, warming up in during the shared pool times. You'll
how
hear coach. So
how many people in a room, like living conditions?
typically two.
Is it a
Yeah.
is it it's a like a dorm type of setup?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry to
So
interrupt your flow, but
no, 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 no. That's
I'm
a
just
good
imagining you
point.
laying on a bed
Yeah.
and you got a roommate. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
No, well, no, that's a great point, though, Russell.
okay,
These are the things. So yeah, you might be looking to rest, or you might have your heat times at, let's say, 9:30. Your roommate might have their heat times a little earlier, and they're not thinking about sleeping properly. They're not thinking about when they're going to eat. They're not thinking about, hey, if I'm racing a heat at 9:30, I got to be getting food and fueling up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Therefore, I have to be in bed tonight. But all of those things add up to a great performance. So
hmm,
yes, you get personality flares. You don't see this on Wide World of Sport. You don't see this on NBC coverage. You've got a lot of athletes living in close quarters, very on edge nerves wise, looking to be confident, looking to at least look confident. Lots of issues can arise pretty quickly.
oh wow, okay,
And so you got those issues to deal with sometimes,
all right.
as
So
well.
coming and going. Okay, to
Yeah.
the and is there I'm guessing, is there other than where you go to eat, is there like a social life thing
Oh yeah.
going? I
Huge.
mean,
Yeah.
is there a place for that, or is that wherever you are?
No, there's a huge place for it.
Okay,
So typically they'll call it some kind of theater or some kind of massive hall, or they'll title it something, and that'll be the entertainment spot where they'll have live bands. I mean, in 1984 there was Pat Benatar, there was the Beach Boys, there were a
really?
number of US bands. Yeah, yeah, they're just coming through the village. And so yes, there'll be things like that. There are movie theaters there where they'll typically have one or two movie theaters going. Probably not as popular now because everybody's got anything they want on their phone.
Right.
But those kinds of things are there. All of a sudden, you get given all of this gear, And so you have new shoes. Sponsors they're sponsored everything, and so you've got brand new shoes. They look great, they feel great, until all of a sudden you've walked for 2 or 3 days in different shoes in the heat, and all of a sudden your feet are blistered, your legs are tired. That was 1984. I learned that 1988 when I was given all the sponsors' gear and two big bags. It went straight under my bed
Gotcha.
because I had all my gear, I knew all my stuff. I'm super appreciative of the sponsors' stuff,
Right.
but I don't need to be walking around in brand new shoes 4 days before I swim.
Right. Right.
These are all the little things you got to
Yeah.
be
Sure.
got to be thinking about.
Yeah. All right. So
So
okay. So and now your coach. Where do you coach? Where does your coach say? Are they in the village too, or?
yeah, so my New Zealand coach turned down the opportunity to be the New Zealand Olympic coach because he wanted to just work with me. So he came over to the Olympics. My parents flew him over so we could be together. My dad was over there as well. My mum stayed back in New Zealand. My girlfriend, who I then went on to marry a couple of years later, was over staying with my coach and my dad. And so I had my team there. The New Zealand coach for the swim team, very political type of guy, without going into too much, but was we just again there were challenges there on the team with him and other swimmers, and you can't get absorbed into that. So
Right.
my own coach was there. We were able to get him a pass to get down onto pool deck, and you do go through an interesting phase because you're both realizing 13 years, it's all down to this now. So there are times when we'd just sit in silence on the pool deck, and we knew what each other was thinking. And then there were times where he knew exactly what I needed to hear. Um, Typically, when you go to the games village, you'll be weighing yourself each day, and then about 4 days out, 5 days out, you don't bother to do that because you don't want to get hung up on anything that
Right.
you can't change anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these little points of discipline along the way, super important. But he knew what I needed to hear, and he would always just keep telling me, you've done all the work, you've earned the right to expect success. These guys have got two arms, two legs, they bleed just like you. It's just like let's just see what we can do here.
Right. Right.
And I think that was our catchphrase. That was the catchphrase we had in 1988, was no regrets. We said we wanted to get to September the 22nd with no regrets. Whatever happened, happened.
Mm.
He knew my faith. He knew I had a very strong belief there, and he knew that, and he admired that. And he said, we want to get there on that day with no regrets.
That's good.
Um,
It's
so
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was good.
So okay. So people from all over the world gathered in a village. Does like politics or ethnicity or does any of that ever? Uh, is there any negatives to that, like that comes out in the village, like like
No,
political whatever? No.
no, no.
Yeah.
I think everybody there is very respectful. It's just going to be an interesting situation this time around. But everybody in there is very respectful. I think one of the fun things about being at the Olympics. So I was swimming at Cal at that time. So I was on the UC Berkeley swim team, and so I was there from '86 to '90, and so obviously included the 1988 Olympics. One of the coolest things at the Olympics is that in April, when we finished NC2As, we took our final exams, and then I flew home to New Zealand to train. We had Swedes on the team, we had English guys on the team, we had Germans on the team, and so then we all head off in our own, to our own countries. We'll come back into Seoul, and you're seeing teammates. The guys that you were just swimming NC2As with a couple of months back, and so
Oh, that's cool.
you're sitting there on the pool deck having just swum an Olympic medley relay final, and it's just like, so who do you have for English 2A? next month. And
Oh, wow.
who did you land for math 6B?
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and then 2 weeks later, you're back at college together. So it's
Yeah,
a
yeah, sure.
fun experience.
So the next question is about the performance enhancing drugs.
Mm,
Um, from I was just naive to that as a kid. I didn't start training with weights or anything till I was 21,
mm,
and I went to a gym in Jersey City, New Jersey, and there was guys there that were just monstrous, and
hmm
I couldn't ever see myself. Never mind their size, but what the weights they were moving, and I remember going into the bathroom and not just thinking, oh, they just had a bloody nose or something, seeing like
mm,
bloody, you know, tissues and whatever everywhere. And I was like,
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of strange. And
mm,
no clue about what people were injecting into themselves.
yeah,
And I'm thankful that I didn't, because I probably would have been stupid
yeah,
enough to try it myself.
right.
But at the Olympic level, though, or international competition, you always hear about all the levels that they have to raise up the testing to. They keep samples for a period of time. There's all these masking agents that they use on these things. I mean, what did that ever come into your conversation, or um, teammates? Were you ever up close to seeing that, or is it
Never came into the conversation. And this was '88, so things were really about to blow wide open shortly after those Olympics. It does make you a little paranoid in what you take. When you get into the games village, you meet with the team doctors pretty much on day one, and there's a book like that thick of what of all the drugs that you can get tested for, and it's just like, well, what do we eat? Because these things can, some of the things can show up. But I think, Russell, one of the if I get asked this a fair bit, they're never going to, particularly in Olympic level, in my opinion, they're never going to eradicate the problem unless they bring in a lifetime ban. Because until they bring in a lifetime ban, what they're in fact saying to all of the other athletes is, we're prepared to mess around with your careers for the
Hmm,
one or two people who do this. And it's not one or two now, it's everywhere. Just listened to a podcast by a lady who used to run for a significant shoe company, and some of the things she was saying about the athletic situation in general, like it was just like it's just assumed. And I thought, wow, I was never aware of it in swimming at that point.
right.
Um, but I
When
remember
was
when
the
so
East Germans? What year were the East Germans? When did they go?
so the wall comes down in '87, and then Germany.
Uh,
So '88, they're still competing as two different bodies, and then because Kristen Otto, brilliant East German swimmer, won 8 Olympic golds. I think 7 or 8 at Seoul. It may have been 6. I'm blanking on that. It could have been 6. Um, and then after that, when some of the systematic doping allegations came out and some of the proof came out, yeah, it was pretty amazing. There's a lady, a good friend of mine, Wendy Bolio. There's a movie that they did with her and the U.S. women's relay team, swimming team, regarding the 1976 Olympics. It's called The Last Gold, and it is one of the most phenomenal, moving sports movies. It's a documentary
mhm.
covering the East German drug issue and how the US women's team won that gold medal. And it's fascinating. It's sad at the same time as has you in tears. It's just an amazing story. But yeah, they're never going to take care of it now. And you've got the unless they bring in those bans, you've got the systematic doping that is now known in other countries, where even several weeks back, they've just been the World Anti-Doping Association, WADA, has basically just turned a blind eye to some of the issues going on. And
Yeah.
It just makes a mockery of the athletes trying to do it legitimately.
I think, it's cheating,
Yeah,
not wanting to put the work in, shortcuts. That, that mentality is always going to be, what can I get away with?
it's human
Um,
nature.
yeah.
Give me the fastest way to the top.
And, yeah. And I think, that's one of my concerns, even just in sports, but in fitness, even,
Mm,
people say, well, I got to get to the gym and whatever. And, I just relate back to my gym experience. I mean, I was blessed not to get involved in stuff, but
yeah,
that somebody's going to mention it to a young, especially a young person in a
that's right.
gym. Oh, you take
Yeah,
this and this herb or whatever it is. I'm not
yeah,
saying herbs are great, but
yeah,
then you move into some other areas.
yeah,
And I think it's just, it's the human condition. And like you said, it's always going to be there. Everybody's going to, try to find an
yeah.
angle to win. And,
Yeah,
because it's not running your own race, right? It's
that's right.
not that, that perspective that you're giving the best you can in that moment, or leading up
Mm,
to that moment. And the reward will be the reward,
that's
it'll
right.
it'll be in and of itself, so yeah, sports,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a complicated thing. It's a
it is.
complicated thing.
It
But
is.
anyway, so do you have any so just, yeah, we're running here. What you got any Olympic picks or anything? I have absolutely, I don't follow it ever since well, you say some names, I would remember some names, but it just got, like you said, watching so much. Back in the day, it was the swimmers were the first week, so you got to know all the swimmers.
Right,
Right.
right.
Second week was track and field, and
Yeah.
during the Summer Olympics, and you always kind of knew all the athletes. Now,
Mm,
you see this event, whatever. So,
mm.
who are you looking at? I mean, team wise, any individuals that we should be focusing on, or
So
I'm going to write
obviously
this
with
down.
no, yeah, with the US swimming trials, and here's the thing with the US trials, the US swimming trials take place in the next couple of weeks, and you just never know who's actually going to be on the team.
Right.
I mean, it's one of the things that you'll often see in the US Olympic trials. World records will get broken in the morning. Doesn't mean a thing, because if you're not one or two back at night, if you're not first or second, you ain't going.
Yeah.
And so relative to projections on the US team, Ryan Murphy is always a favorite of mine because he's a backstroker. Simone Biles from the from gymnastics, if she again, she's coming, she's on her way back, and she had a real tough challenge 4 years ago. um, I love watching gymnastics. It's one of the reasons I probably enjoy the Winter Olympics more than the Summer Olympics, because these people, a lot of them, the courage they have to do what they do in training
Yeah.
every day, gymnastics being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just would not have the courage to go on a beam, several inches wide and somersault and vault. And I mean, the worst thing that ever happened to me is like you break your finger getting it caught in the lane line, but you don't break your neck or break a leg or something. That's
You never
crazy.
hit your head on the wall? No?
Oh, sometimes that happens. I mean, people often ask me like, how many times? They just assume that happened a lot of times after they've spoken with me.
Right, right.
But I really hope for Paris that that it goes without without a hitch. It's sad that the Olympics and big international events like that now also become big international targets for issues.
Yeah.
And for Paris's sake, I just hope it goes without
Yeah,
a
yeah.
hitch.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, good. I think I think we got some good stuff for parents to think about in terms of sports. I think for everybody, just your perspective, reaching the higher levels, kind of, lets everybody in on the it ain't easy.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and family support, all these things in a normal person's life. It's all
Mm,
there, right?
mm,
And
yeah,
and it's are you being supported or are you being pushed? Right. I mean, it's got to
Yeah.
be, you're the athlete. It's got to be your dream. It's got to be your
Mhm.
vision. Right. But yeah, we're here to come alongside in all different ways. We're going to help you with it, so yeah,
Yeah.
on that level, it's a beautiful thing. And your story's awesome. So,
No, thank
all
you.
right. Yeah, man. So, all right. So let's wrap. I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode and you get some takeaways that you can use. You can connect with Paul at paulkingsman.com as well as on LinkedIn. Please share this with your friends and don't forget all my stuff at topsecretsofsuccess.com and russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or a grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 13-year-old, check out our 60-day transformational interactive video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. It's amazing. It will equip and encourage parents and kids. Yes, topsecretsofsuccess.com. Get on our email list. And in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you will never go wrong. Then you can all go and make it a great day. Bye for now.